Sister's outburst shattered my dad's engagement. Amy's retreat is a heartbreaking wake-up call for us all. My family is made up of me and my twin brother Sebastian. We're both 16, and he's actually helping me write this. Our older sister Lisa, 17, our dad Sean, he's 41, and our, maybe former? Future stepmom Amy, who's 36. Our mom passed away 9 years ago. For 5 years after that, my dad avoided dating altogether, which I think we all needed. Then he briefly dated a woman named Riley, who turned out to be a complete disaster, then stopped dating again for a while. About 3 years ago, Dad met Amy. He introduced us to her 2 years ago, and then last year, all of us moved into a bigger house together. 6 months ago, Dad and Amy got engaged. When Dad first started dating again, even before Riley, I wasn't thrilled, none of us kids were. But we all went to therapy as a family to process everything. For the most part, we made peace with Dad trying to move on. Still, we made a pact between the 3 siblings. Nobody would ever erase Mom from our lives, nobody would ever adopt us, and although we'd be polite to whoever Dad dated, we'd always keep some distance. It was our way of honoring Mom, especially after the train wreck that was Riley. She was rude, seemed jealous of Mom's memory, never seemed to like us, and honestly acted like a complete gold digger. It was rough. So, together with Dad, we started jokingly referring to ourselves as the Core 4. All of that changed once we got to know Amy, especially after we moved in with her. I did a complete 180, Seb did too, honestly, though Lisa took a bit longer to warm up. Amy just isn't like anyone else. She's brilliant and kind of nerdy, she's got 3 degrees, including one in psychology, which explains a lot, and she's into D&D, so the whole family plays together. She's successful, artistic, athletic, has this dry, deadpan humor that always makes me laugh. When we've got the whole extended family over, everyone being their loudest, wildest selves, Amy has this presence. People just stop and listen when she speaks. She's wise, patient, and yet somehow comes across as a total boss, the kind of person everyone wants to have around. She's genuinely interested in all our lives and hobbies. She and Seb do art and play tennis, she and I game together, and she and Lisa go on book shopping trips every few months and talk about K-pop endlessly. The house is overflowing with books because of them. Lisa's started learning to drive, and Amy teaches her. I honestly think Lisa clicked with Amy even faster than Seb or I did, but she'd never admit it. Amy doesn't ever try to stop us from talking about Mom. In fact, she encourages it, respectfully, at a distance when she feels it's appropriate, but genuinely. There are still a few photos of Mom in the house, which Amy is totally fine with. She seems unthreatened by Mom's presence, which, after Riley, is honestly remarkable. Once, when Seb wanted to paint a picture for our maternal granddad's birthday, Amy quietly helped him recreate an old family photo, including Mom. Even my mom's side of the family loves Amy. My aunt, Mom's sister, and Amy are actually good friends now. It turns out Amy lost her own dad when she was 12, something we only found out a few months ago. I think that settled a lot for Lisa. Lisa can be sharp sometimes. Occasionally, I know she goes out of her way to use Mom's memory to get back at Amy, or to see if Amy will snap. But Amy either kills her with kindness until Lisa gives up, or she just moves on, not out of spite, just an honest disinterest in drama. My dad is a great father, patient, supportive, open to any discussion, strict but never cruel, always willing to see our point of view. He and Amy made it super clear that Amy has no interest in replacing our mom. She's a respected voice in the household, but she doesn't try to parent us. She insists only that we treat each other with basic human-to-human respect and kindness. That's always been enough for her. Despite everything going well, sometimes Lisa snaps back into Riley mode at random, especially after she and Amy have had a nice time together. It's as if she's trying to provoke Amy, looking for a reason to justify why dad dating is a bad idea. She'll make some snarky comment, pick a fight for no reason, but Amy barely reacts. She'll set a boundary, I'm not engaging when you act like this, and then just keeps doing whatever she was doing. Dad steps in if there's a real problem. It's like Amy just keeps living her life, making it clear the door is open for Lisa, but not making a fuss when Lisa slams it. When the dust settles and Lisa calms down, she'll apologize, sometimes with Dad's help, sometimes without, and Amy just shrugs, says thank you, and acts as if nothing happened. They go right back to whatever they were doing before. One time, during dinner, Lisa started fighting with Dad and Amy. She went off about the dinner Amy made, insulted Amy's home country, even though Lisa actually loves the dish, and Amy just said, suit yourself, serve the rest of us, and carried on like nothing had happened. Dad took Lisa aside for a quick talk. When they came back, he asked Amy if Lisa could still sit and eat with us. Amy just said sure and continued chatting. Lisa apologized, not prompted by Dad, and Amy simply thanked her and continued her conversation. When the topic changed back to something that involved Lisa, Amy included her like normal. But there's a flip side, and it's the only flaw I ever notice with Amy. Every once in a long while, when she's completely had enough, when she's exhausted or something at work has gone badly, she'll actually respond in kind. Not yelling, nothing dramatic, just this cold quiet, and she'll throw a comment right back at you. You never see it coming, because 99% of the time, She's the most patient and mature person in the room. We've started calling it Saba, sneak attack by Amy. It's kind of hilarious to watch when she does it on your behalf. Not so much fun if you're the target. Amy is wildly patient, and usually incredible at diffusing any drama. She's even learned to recognize when she's getting close to her limit. She'll warn us and step away if she needs to, but when she does hit that line, it's like being clotheslined by a whisper. When it happens, we all get the message. Despite all of this, life is honestly so much better since Amy came along. Our family feels more whole, more at ease. Even Lisa, for all her whiplash moments, seems happier overall. For the first time since Mom died, I actually want to see what happens next. I want to share what's been happening in my family lately, because I honestly don't know what else to do with these feelings. We've always been pretty direct with each other. When things get intense, we'll say what's on our minds, though that sometimes means people get hurt. Usually, though, we patch things up. If someone goes too far, especially Amy, my dad's partner, she owns it and apologizes. Our communication is usually strong, mainly thanks to Amy, who's mostly a patient and incredibly considerate person. But every now and then, we push, and she goes there, and when Amy's Saba comes out, it hits hard. Snarky comebacks are her specialty. There was this one time, mid-argument, when I completely lost my temper and told her fuck you. Amy didn't even blink, she just shrugged and tossed back, your father does that enough, I'll let him know he has your blessing. Another time, Seb was blowing up over missing practice, which was his own fault. Amy, unimpressed, yawned, got up, and when Seb demanded to know where she was going, she just replied, totally unruffled, I'm not interested in a baby throwing a tantrum. But it's Lisa who really brings out the worst. Lisa takes everything personally, and when she's angry, she goes for the jugular. Once, she asked Amy, how does it feel to know you wouldn't be here if our mom was still alive? Amy just paused, then said, I would probably be living my best life in the Bahamas with a rich European prince and no brats to bust my balls, so much better. It always shook us, because Amy is so rarely that cutting. There was a time Amy was having a pregnancy scare, and Lisa couldn't let it rest, throwing out, you will never have children of your own. Amy, deadpan as ever, shot back, I hope not, I like my P_C tight, and so does your dad. The shock that ran through the house whenever Amy turned Saba on us was unreal, because she's usually so gentle. We, the so-called Core 4, have talked about all this in therapy. Lisa admits she's just scared, angry at the idea that Amy could replace our mom. We always point out that Amy has absolutely zero interest in that kind of role anyway. For me, I've never felt like Amy is trying to take our mom's place. We actually joke about it sometimes, calling each other mother/son ironically. Whenever Lisa acts out, Dad steps up, there are always consequences, and we talk things through in therapy. It keeps the peace for a while. Our therapist has even suggested inviting Amy into their sessions, but Lisa refuses. Dad is starting to bring up individual therapy for Lisa, but she's resisting. The craziest part? Lisa and Amy actually get along really well, until Lisa's demons come out. Just yesterday, Seb, Lisa, and I spent the afternoon with our grandparents and cousins, helped them clear snow, grabbed some dinner, and came home late. Dad and Amy were chatting in the kitchen about wedding plans, and as we walked in, Dad was mentioning the possibility of Amy adopting us down the line, just as a hypothetical if we wanted it as adults. The second Lisa overheard, she lost all control, burst into the kitchen screaming at Dad about Mom, hurling every insult she could think of, lashing out at Amy, wishing her dead, and then spat out, I will never want a C-word, like you to be my mom. Amy just looked at her, calm as ever, and said, what makes you think I would ever choose you to be my daughter? That cut Lisa deeply, I could see her physically pull back. Dad took Lisa upstairs. There were raised voices, and then Lisa's crying. I couldn't make out what was being said exactly, but the house felt like it was shaking. Amy stayed down with us. She explained the whole adoption thing, just a hypothetical, nothing set in stone. We kept asking her questions, but her answers grew slower and quieter. When we tried to talk about the wedding or how she was feeling, she just went silent. She was shaking, trying so hard to hold it together, and I have never seen her like that. Everything felt so quiet. Seb eventually told her that what she said to Lisa was a low blow. Amy gave this sad little smile and admitted, maybe so. When Dad came back down, Amy stood up in this slow, almost dreamlike motion, grabbed her coat, collected some things, and left in a blur. Dad was desperate, he was almost in tears himself, begging her to stay and talk. But Amy just kept repeating, not tonight. I have to leave. Be there for your sons. I'm sorry, as she walked out the door into the snow, crying. We sat with Dad. He was wrecked, he told us Lisa would be getting individual therapy now, no arguments. He asked if Seb or I wanted the same. Seb said no. I didn't know what to say. Dad kept trying to talk about what happened, asked if we were okay. But then he just broke down completely. I haven't seen him cry like that since Mom died. We just hugged him, there was nothing else to do. Dad kept apologizing to us, asking if we knew he loves us, if he's been a good dad, if he neglected us for Amy. I just wanted to punch Lisa for putting those doubts in his head, making him question if it was wrong to move on after nearly a decade and finally be happy with a genuinely good person. Amy wasn't in the house this morning. Dad had puffy eyes and looked like he'd aged a decade. He said good morning so quietly and, when I asked if Amy came home, he simply said no, not to worry, she's safe. He made breakfast, but he just wasn't there. When Lisa came down, Dad looked at her and just turned away. She tried to hug him, crying and apologizing, but Dad stepped back and told her, I don't want to hug you right now, and his voice was broken. Lisa collapsed, sobbing, telling him she loves Amy, wants them to get married, wants Dad to be happy. She kept asking if he still loves her. And Dad, he said, I will always love you as my daughter, but I don't love you as Lisa right now. I've never heard him say anything so brutal, but I'm glad he did. Lisa needs to feel this. We're staying at our grandparents' now. Dad wants to get Amy to come back and talk, but we haven't told the grandparents the whole story. If they knew half of what Lisa said to Amy, they'd be heartbroken. I'm furious at Lisa. She's sitting in the corner pretending to read, flipping a page every 10 minutes, and I want to scream at her, let her have it until there's nothing left. If she ruins this for Dad, for all of us. I can't even begin to say how much I hate her right now. That's it. Pouring this out didn't make me feel any better. Update, last night was the quietest I've ever heard our grandparents' house, and that place is never quiet. Grandpa snores like a lawnmower and the radiator complains like a ghost. Dad took the pull-out in the den and didn't even pretend to sleep. Around 2, I came down for water and found him on the phone, facing the window like he was afraid to look at anyone while he said I love you. I knew who it was. He said it again, then he went silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, it was, I understand. Space. Yes, I stood there like an idiot with a glass of tap water watching his reflection in the black window. Right at the end he said, Do I need to give you the ring back? And then he closed his eyes like answering himself hurt. He didn't say anything for almost a minute, then he just whispered, Okay. Text me when you get home, and hung up. He didn't see me until I was halfway back up the stairs. He just said, Hey, bud, with that broken voice and tried to smile, and I wanted to throw the glass at the wall and have it be someone else's house. This morning Lisa was gone. She left her phone on the kitchen counter like a cartoon burglar who wants to get caught. Her boots were gone. Her dumb puffball hat that she insists isn't dumb was gone. Grandma made a sound I've only ever heard her make at funerals. Dad did the thing where he looks at every wall before he says anything and then he called Amy first. I don't know why that surprised me. Habit, probably. It went to voicemail. He called Lisa's friends, nobody had heard from her. He called the bus depot and I don't know who taught my dad to become Jason Bourne about transit schedules, but within 5 minutes he had figured out there was a bus downtown at 6:40 that stops 3 blocks from Amy's office. We found her outside Amy's building, sitting on the curb with her hands jammed in her coat like she was trying to become smaller than the snow. Her eyes were the kind of red that hurts just to see. The front desk guy was doing that I'm not allowed to let you up thing and Lisa was doing that I wrote a letter, can you just give it to her thing, and it was clear they'd been at it a while. When Dad said her name, she flinched like he'd thrown something. She got up too fast and her foot went out from under her. There was this gross crack that my therapist will probably tell me was a leaf, not her bone, because that's how therapists lie to you gently. The glass door slid open and Amy was just suddenly there like she'd been right behind the glass the whole time, watching and making herself stay put. She didn't say anything at first. She just shrugged off her coat and wrapped it around Lisa without asking and crouched to look at her ankle like she was checking a painting for a scratch. Can I touch? She asked, and Lisa nodded and started crying, the kind of cry that sounds like it hurts your ribs. Amy's voice went low and calm in that way she has when things are actually bad. Is it sharp pain? Can you wiggle your toes? All right. We're going to urgent care. Amy didn't look at Dad while she said any of that, but she handed him her purse like it was the most obvious thing in the world that he'd hold it for her, and he did, and there was this tiny flash of normal that made my chest hurt. Urgent care was all fluorescent and vinyl and a TV playing a cooking show at a volume that would drive spies to confess. Amy signed Lisa in, and when the desk lady asked who she was, her voice snagged for a second and then she said, and then stopped. Dad stepped in and said, I'm her father. Amy exhaled and took the clipboard. It felt like watching someone balance on a beam over lava. Lisa kept apologizing. I didn't mean to slip, I didn't mean to say that, I didn't mean, and Amy, still not looking at Dad, said, you don't have to try to cover all of that in one apology. One thing at a time. When the nurse called Lisa back, Amy went with her. Dad sat between me and Seb and stared holes in a brochure about skin rashes. He didn't talk. He kept rubbing his ring like he was trying to warm it up. Seb nudged me and pointed carefully with his eyes, and that's how I noticed Amy's ring wasn't on her hand, but it was on a thin chain around her neck. I don't know if that's better or worse. Different kind of stomach drop. They brought me and Seb back once they got Lisa in X-ray and ice wrapped. Amy was sitting in the chair by the curtain, ankle crossed over her knee like she was pretending to be comfortable. When we came in, she gave Seb a look like, I see you, and to me, a small not quite smile. She touched the top of Lisa's head through the hat, soft, and then folded her hands so she wouldn't do it again. Lisa tried to get it out all at once. I am sorry, Amy, I am so sorry, I didn't mean it, I don't. Amy held up one finger and then lowered it like she was reminding herself not to shush a bleeding person. Lisa, she said. I heard you tell my fiancé you wished me dead. She didn't say it sharply. It was just a fact placed on the table between them. Lisa went white. I know, she said. I hate that I said that. I hate me for it. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Do you hate me? Amy closed her eyes for a second. When she opened them again, her face was the one she wears when she does something difficult to save you from yourself. No, she said. I'm mad at you. And I don't like you when you are like that. But I don't hate you. She glanced at the ice pack and then at Dad's hands and then finally looked him in the eye. I shouldn't have said what I said to you last night. It was low. I'm sorry. She didn't cry when she said it. Amy's apologies are always clean. Dad's eyes filled anyway. He nodded and swallowed and said, I didn't protect you. Either of you. Amy shook her head once. We all failed last night, she said. That's what families do sometimes. Then we decide what to fix. She turned back to Lisa. I don't want to be your mother. I know you have one. I have no interest in taking that from you, but I also won't be anyone's punching bag. If I stay, if I am in your life, I will be me. I like my life. I like who I am in it. I like your father. And I like you when you are kind. If you want me in your life, it has to be in that space. Respect. Basic human to human. You can hate the idea of me. You cannot hate me to my face every time you panic. Lisa nodded so hard the puffball bounced. I'll do therapy, she said fast. I'll go alone. And Amy's mouth quirked like she almost laughed. Good, she said. Not because of me. Because of you. Then she looked at Dad again. I need time, she said quietly. I am not okay being in that house right now. She touched the ring at her throat, quick, and dropped it. I'm not ending anything today. But the wedding is postponed. Not because I don't love you. She worked at a smile and failed. Because if I marry you tomorrow we'll all be back here next week. There was a beat where only the cooking show on the TV could be heard. Someone was whisking egg whites like they were trying to summon God. The doctor came in then and announced, very cheerfully, that it was a bad sprain, not a break. Lisa made a little squeak of gratitude to the universe and the doctor told her she'd need crutches and rest and then did the parental advisory about no high heels like Lisa was on her way to a gala. When he left, Amy finally exhaled for real. Good, she said, to the air. Luck threw you one bone. Then, because she is still Amy even when she is gutted, she turned to Seb and said, do not make a tennis pun. He closed his mouth and did not make one. That might be the real miracle. On the drive back, Amy rode with Lisa so she wouldn't have to get in and out twice. Dad had to go inside to get Lisa's discharge paperwork from the desk and Amy turned to us in the car, hands on the steering wheel but not driving anywhere yet. I'm going to stay at my old place for a while, she said. There's a small thing at work, I've been offered a 3-month residency in Seattle. She said it like she was trying the words on to see if they ripped. I was going to turn it down. I think I'm going to take it. She waited. That doesn't have to be a goodbye. We can do Zoom. We can do D&D on Fridays. She looked at me in the mirror. You can send me the new boss you can't beat and I'll pretend I'm not better at it than you. It hit me then, stupidly, that Lisa going nuclear had real-world consequences that weren't going to be fixed by Coco and group hugs. The person who made the house feel like a place you wanted to be in was taking her life and moving it down the map for a while. It was logical and adult and the right boundary and I wanted to throw up. Back at Grandma's, Dad helped Amy get Lisa inside and onto the couch and then stood there like he didn't know if he was allowed to touch Amy. Amy took his hand, squeezed once, and let go first. I will come by the house tomorrow when everyone's out, she said to him. I need to get some clothes. A few books. I will leave keys for now. Don't clean my mug out of the sink. I like the science experiment. It was a joke and it wasn't. She looked at Lisa. I left you something, she said. Lisa blinked. At the front desk, Amy added. A letter. For you to read when I'm not in the room. No theatrics. No bargaining inside it. Just read it. Lisa nodded and gulped like a fish. Amy looked at Seb. Send me the picture when you finish it, she said. Then she looked at me. Eat before 9. Don't turn nocturnal. It turns you mean. That made me actually laugh, which, rude, but accurate. Dad walked her out to the car. He didn't come back in for a long time. When he did, he looked like someone had wrung him out. He told Grandma the bare minimum and then sat on the rug with his back against the couch like he was in timeout. Lisa asked if she could have her phone to text Amy an apology. Dad said, no. Write it on paper. She went pale, like that was somehow worse. It probably is. Amy's letter showed up an hour later, a little white envelope with Lisa's name written in that neat, architect way Amy writes, like she lines her words up with a ruler in her head. Lisa took it to the dining room by herself. She was in there for a long time. When she came out, she wasn't crying. She looked like someone who'd been given marching orders. She asked Grandma for the number of the therapist our cousins saw after their divorce and then sat down on the rug across from Dad. She didn't try to hug him. She just said, I'm starting. Tomorrow. I'll bring you the intake forms before I sign anything. Dad nodded, which in dad language means he's too sad to do anything fancy with his mouth. Tonight, because our family is insane and also because Amy is who she is, she texted the group chat a calendar invite. Emergency one shot, it said. 7 p.m. Pacific. Optional. Orcs will be harmed. It was a Zoom D&D session, just for an hour. She logged in from a place with brick walls and a sad succulent behind her. She didn't turn her camera on at first. When she did, she was in a hoodie with her hair up and the ring on a chain catching the light when she moved. We rolled initiative. It was ridiculous and perfect. Amy made us rescue an NPC named Boundaries from a swamp full of bog witches who yell compliments that sound like insults. Lisa tried to be quiet, then wasn't. At one point, Amy looked at her square on the screen and said, "Hey, kiddo, nice roll," and the word landed in the center of the table and stayed there, warm. After we signed off, my phone pinged. It was a separate text from Amy, just to me and Seb. "Please take care of your dad." "I will too, just from a different zip code for a bit." Then another, after a pause. "Tell your mother, if you talk to her when you can't sleep, that I am not trying to steal her kids. Tell her I'm trying to be the adult in the room that would have been helpful to all of us when we were 12. I don't know how to tell my mother anything. I think I'll try anyway." Dad came into our room late and sat on the floor with his back against my bed like he had with the couch earlier. He held his head in his hands for a while and then said, without looking up, "I'm going to call the jeweler tomorrow." My stomach dropped so hard my toes tingled. Then he finished the sentence. "To get the ring resized to a chain. It's going to live on her throat for a while." He finally looked up at us. "We're postponing. We are not quitting." He said it like he was daring the air to argue. Lisa is asleep on the couch in the den, foot elevated, mouth open. Before she knocked out, she handed Dad the crumpled letter she tried to give Amy at the office. He smoothed it with his palm. It was 3 pages long and her handwriting got messier in the middle and then steadier at the end. I didn't read it. I just watched his face. He closed his eyes over one line and let out a breath like a prayer. "Tomorrow Amy's coming by to grab her books. She told Dad not to be home. She said to leave the porch light on anyway. I don't like to feel like I'm sneaking out," she wrote. That's not the story. Then she added, "Because she can't help herself even when she's bleeding. Also, put the stupid basil plant in the window. It's not dead, it's dramatic. I hate that we deserve any of this and we're getting it anyway. I hate that Lisa handed a match to a person who has always kept our house from burning down. I hate that the only person who looked like she could handle Lisa's fire did the grown-up thing and set every single boundary we've been told about in therapy and then added one more I didn't see coming, loving us from down the map for a while. When I close my eyes, I can still hear Amy in urgent care saying, 'Luck threw you one bone.' It did. Lisa's ankle will heal. I don't know how to fix the rest. But for the first time since last night, I don't feel like everything has to happen right now. It can happen in a different time zone, a little bit at a time, with a ring on a chain and a basil plant that might not actually be dead. We'll see. I want to see what happens next. That part hasn't changed. Update, today felt like living in parentheses. Everything we did had an invisible note next to it, while Amy is not here. Dad woke us early like we were catching a flight except it was to a strip mall jeweler with a neon ring that blinks like a heartbeat. He didn't say much in the car. He held the little velvet box in his palm like it was a bird he didn't want to wake. Inside, the ring looked wrong suddenly, like it belonged to a future we're not in yet. The jeweler was this tiny old woman with a magnifying monocle who said, "Chain?" in a voice that made allergies sound like a diagnosis. Dad said yes and his voice broke and the jeweler looked at him for one beat longer than is polite and then decided to be kind in the only language jewelers speak. "We'll keep the setting safe," she said. "Throat length? Something that won't catch on sweaters." She measured Dad's finger because his hands were shaking too hard to hold the chain straight and he made a terrible joke about how he's not the one wearing it. The jeweler did not laugh. She picked a chain that looked like light if it had structure. When she clipped the ring onto it, it made this tiny click you usually don't notice until it's the loudest sound in your day. Dad held it up like you test a bulb. It flashed and then settled. He put the chain in his pocket instead of the box. "I'll give it to her when she asks for it," he said, which is such a dad sentence my chest hurt. At home, the porch light was on like we were honoring a ritual. We did what Amy asked. We were out of the house, except I realized at lunch I left my English binder and I am a coward but not a failing English coward, so I texted Dad and he said, "Only if her car isn't there." And you don't hover. Her car wasn't there. Still, unlocking the door felt like breaking and entering into my own life. The house was cleaner than we left it in the way Amy cleans when she's nervous, everything aligned by some inner level you can't see until it's crooked again. Her mug was still in the sink, science experiment intact, green algae ring theatrically clinging to life. The basil plant was in the window like it had always been there, tilted toward the pale January sun like a melodrama queen. There was a post-it on the pot in Amy's neat block letters, "Told you I'm dramatic." On the kitchen island she'd left 3 paper bags. Not gifts. Assignments. One had Seb's name on it and a set of charcoal pencils he's been eyeing and a note that said, "Stop hating your hands when they do good work." One had my name and a game controller thumb grip thing I broke last month and kept forgetting to replace, plus a note that said, "Eat before 9. Don't test me." The third bag was blank and full of loose tea and a scarf that still smelled like her shampoo. I knew what that meant before I saw the keys on top of it. 2 house keys, 1 little purple tag with Amy's name. She'd put them on the hook but left the tag turned backward like the keys were shy. Her bookshelf gaps were like missing teeth. The witchy graphic novels were gone, and the thick psychology texts with the brutal titles, Attachment in the Time of Fire, Boundaries are not knives but they can cut. She left all the cookbooks with elaborate recipes nobody at our house ever has the patience for, which felt like a joke and wasn't. On the fridge, the whiteboard where we write grocery lists was wiped clean except for a little corner note Amy had left like a whisper, do the little boring loving things. They add up. I grabbed my binder off the table and ran, like if I moved too slow I'd hear something I couldn't unhear. Lisa had her first therapy appointment this afternoon. She didn't flounce about it or try to grandstand. Grandma drove her. When she came back, she was carrying a folder like it might bite. She has a boot on her foot, 1 crutch, and the kind of silence that either explodes or becomes actual thought. Dad was at the table with bills spread out like a losing hand. Lisa stood in front of him and didn't chew her hair and didn't look at her shoes. I start twice a week, she said, and the way she said it was not a please like me sentence. Homework is to write 3 letters I don't send and 1 I show you. I am not asking you to forgive me. I'm building it. Dad sat back like someone had pushed his chair and then nodded slowly like he was agreeing with gravity. I will drive you, he said. And you can sit with me in the car after and say anything you want and I will not fix it unless you ask. Lisa's mouth twitched and did not smile. Deal, she said. Amy came by to get her things while we were all gone after that. We know because when we came home the hall smelled like her cedar drawer sachets for a minute and then didn't. Also because Peppermint, the stupid sock monkey that always ended up on her side of the couch because she kept threatening to throw it away, was sitting dead center on the coffee table with a note stapled to his ear, do not tell me your secrets. I'm terrible at keeping them. It was the kind of thing Amy would do to make leaving look like a bit instead of an amputation. Our aunt, Mom's sister, showed up at dusk with bread like this was a war movie. She swept in with her hair doing that witchy aunt fanfare and kissed our heads and put the loaf down like an offering. She looked like she wanted to look at all of us at once and couldn't. I stopped by Amy's on my way, she said to Dad, straight up, because our family doesn't do soft reveals. My stomach lined itself with cold. Dad blinked. She okay? He asked, like don't say yes unless she is. Auntie poured olive oil into a dish like she was telling a story with her hands. She was packing books in the slow careful way people pack when they're being brave. I went there to be territorial, she said. I left there recruited. She pulled a napkin out of her bag and put it on the table like a contract. It was covered in neat handwriting and little squares. She asked me to check on you all once a week while she's gone. She asked me to sit with Lisa after therapy sometimes if you can't. She asked for permission to send me your mother's favorite chocolate cake recipe because she said if she sent it to me she would not be tempted to bake it at your house. She is trying to be. What did she say? Auntie looked at the ceiling for the right word and got it. Proportionate. Dad smiled with his mouth shut, which is the kind of smile you put on so your teeth don't fall out. Did you give her permission? He asked. Auntie tore off a piece of bread and dipped it and then handed it to him. I told her I liked her more after an argument, she said. Welcome to the club. Then she turned to Lisa like a searchlight and softened. I'm proud of you for going, she said. I am also very available to be someone you are mean to who is not Amy. I have trained for this with your uncle for 20 years. Later, Dad and I ran an errand under the guise of needing tape. We have a drawer that produces tape like a magician, so this was a transparent lie, and ended up sitting in the parking lot of a hardware store because it was private in that way fluorescent lights can be private if you're in a bubble. He pulled out the chain. The ring swung in the dim like a tiny planet. Want to see something ridiculous? He asked, which is how you preface either a TikTok or a feeling. He told me he wrote vows last month sitting in his car during lunch. I put them on my phone. I don't remember any of them now except the line where I said I would learn to love the parts of you that do not love me back right away. He huffed something like a laugh. I think I just actually have to learn it. We had another D&D emergency tonight because apparently crisis triggers Amy's need to put us up against monsters with transparent metaphors. At 7 p.m. Pacific, the Zoom binged and there she was, brick wall, sad succulent, worse, hoodie, ring on a chain catching the lamp, her camera cut on and off twice like she was testing if we were still here. We were. The one shot was called Cartographers, which she said like a joke and wasn't. The map was mostly black, with a few flickers of light. We had to move by drawing lines between the lights we could see. Every time we tried to sprint into a dark patch, a swamp thing called what if pulled us under. Lisa kept accidentally rolling high on patience checks, which is very not Lisa. Amy gave her a look across the screen that felt like a high five done with eyebrows. Halfway through, Amy's phone buzzed and she muted, turned to the side, listened, and then unmuted like she was walking back out of a different room into ours. Start date is sooner, she said, like we can handle data. I leave Monday. 3 months. I will be back at least once in there. I will be on your screens a ridiculous amount. I will send you pictures of rain and fish. She paused and we could see her deciding to tell the truth. I am very scared to go. Dad did not say I'll come with you and break his life. He did not say don't go and break hers. He just rolled a die like he could roll a better outcome. It was a 2. He smiled at the stupid screen like it had done that on purpose. Amy laughed, quick, like a hiccup. Same, she said. After the game, we found something else on the counter we hadn't noticed before. An envelope with no names. Inside was the kind of plan only Amy would make and pretend wasn't a plan. Printed pages with headers and way too much white space. At the top it said, house rules we already used to have. Then a line, I am writing these so none of us have to say them at 1 a.m. with a ringing in our ears. No threats inside. Just sentences like, if you are shaking, you step away. If you can't step away, the other person does. If you say something you would not say in front of a version of yourself you are proud of, you apologize without caveats by the next day. I'm not going to list them all because that feels like putting psalm lyrics on a bathroom mirror. It was more the shape of it. You could see the way she believes discipline is a kind of love. Seb finished the painting he started for our granddad, the one Amy helped him sketch once, Mom holding toddler us like we weren't about to drop Cheerios into her shoes. He propped it on the mantel. For a second the house held our mother, our almost stepmother, our grandmother's bread, and us, and none of it exploded. Lisa stood in front of the picture like it might sprout arms and hug her. She looked at Mom's face. If she was here, Lisa said softly, so it wasn't a weapon, she would probably have told me to stop weaponizing her. She smiled and it made me sad and proud at the same time. I hate this, she said. I want to do it anyway. Amy texted me later, just me, because she's rude about favorites and I pretend to hate it. I moved your hoodie to the dryer because I don't trust you not to grow mold, she wrote. Also, tell your dad that the grocery store brand of olive oil he buys is actually good and not to spiral about that too. Then, a minute later, like she'd been holding the next sentence and it warmed her hand too long, I left the light on in the hall because I don't like walking out of rooms in the dark. Will you turn it off when you're ready? It helps to think someone is behind me. Dad and Lisa had one of those late night talks on the stairs because the stairs are where you have talks you can't bear to have at the table where there are forks. I sat at the bottom step pretending to look for my math book on the shoe rack because we are a family of eavesdroppers who think we are spies. Lisa told him something from therapy about panic being an old part of your brain screaming while the newer part tries to make it into a TED talk. Dad said something about how there's a version of her at 5 he still carries like a coin in his pocket. He told her he was going to be mean in a loving way for a while. She nodded hard. That's fair, she said. He took her phone again for the week. She handed it over like she was handing back a weapon she didn't want to shoot anyone with. Grandpa, who has the emotional acuity of a sack of hammers and the timing of a Swiss watch, knocked on my door at midnight to give me a folded 20 for emergencies and then said casually, I like her. That Amy. She's got the kind of brain you can sit under when it rains. Then he wandered off to argue with the radiator like it had insulted Grandma. Tomorrow, Amy's flying out. Dad's driving her to the airport because of course he is, of course he can't not. He asked if we wanted to come and I said no because I know what goodbye looks like when it's an airport. It's people pretending luggage weighs nothing and that they don't. Instead, I wrote the thing she asked. I went out on the back steps where you can see exactly 3 stars through the city glow and I told Mom what Amy told me to tell her. I said, she's not trying to steal us. I said, she's being the adult we needed when we were 12. I said, she left the light on. Amy texted the group chat an itinerary like the world's saddest wedding invite. Gate C12, she wrote, Seattle drizzle patchy with a chance of poor coffee choices. Then, after the screenshot of her boarding pass, another text, just for Dad and then forwarded to all of us 5 minutes later because that's how he loves. I will miss the way your house sounds at 3 p.m. more than anything. Please keep making that noise. Dad came into our room after he dropped her at her place to finish packing. He sat on the floor with his back against my bed like we do now like it's a ritual. He took the chain back out. The ring flashed like a promise at a distance. She put it on, he said, and for a second he looked like a man who has air. She told me it wasn't a no. It's a not yet. I told her I would get better at not yet. I told her I would get better at a lot of things. He rubbed his face with his hands and then laughed in this soft exhausted way. She said, good. Start with the basil. I checked the plant before bed. It looked less tragic already, like it heard its name and decided to cooperate out of spite. The porch light is still on. I'll turn it off when I'm ready. Not because this is the end, but because sometimes you have to practice being the person who makes the tiny boring loving thing happen without being told. That's the part that feels like a map we're drawing now, light to light, line by line, until the dark bits are just where we haven't gone yet.